Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this lecture. I am very delighted to be a part of this lecture series. I will be presenting on aliens, androids, animals, and ghosts, belief narratives of human ontology during the Anthropocene. And this is primarily connected with a lot of my teaching work at USC and also with the USC Folklore Archives, where I have tried to keep track of a lot of the belief narratives going on. So first, a few definitions. The Anthropocene, this is a major part of what I think is going on. So the Anthropocene is, of course, planet Earth's sixth great extinction. The last one was 66 million years ago, caused by an asteroid. This one is caused by us, and it's happening in our lifetime. So this is a critical moment, and not just in human history, but also the history of life on Earth, which is interesting, right? What is it when one organism starts really transforming the entire planet? And how did this come to be, and how did it come to be so quickly? The expanding technologies that seem so wondrous, I think, has caused a great deal of uncertainty, and that uncertainty is translating into the basic questions of who we are. So again, the Anthropocene is defined as this moment, human-caused extinction, sixth great extinction of planet Earth. And again, just in my lifetime, the animal populations worldwide have declined nearly 70%. And that trajectory is not slowing down. It is continuing full speed, possibly even a little quicker now than when it started out. So, you know, you can think about the trajectory where this is all headed, and it's headed towards mass extinction very, very quickly, unless something changes, unless we figure a way out of this mess. Certainly, a lot of the efforts that are put into trying to create a more sustainable future, to stave off all of these horrific side effects of global climate devastation, widespread loss of life. A lot of these are sort of techie solutions. You know, how can we get better energy sources? How can we, revitalize our technologies and develop our technologies? And that makes sense in a certain sense. On the other hand, a lot of people that have worked very, very hard their whole lives at this have also said that they really see it needs to be a cultural transformation. It has to be, you know, it's not just a technological solution that's going to get us out of this. It has to be sort of a cultural rethink, a wholesale cultural, a different approach and appreciation for the enormity of what's upon us right now. So what I see as a folklore is just being expressed in a lot of different folk ontologies. This idea, you know, basic questions of who we are, and for me, I think a lot of it is basically this idea of, you know, are we from Earth? Are we animals? Are we not animals? Are we from the heavens? Either in a Christian theme of having souls and then ascending to the heavens, or in the sort of alien cosmology. I'll be talking a lot about aliens. It's a big part of, I think, what is going on right now, particularly maybe in the United States. A lot of aliens. I love this picture that I've shown here because I think it really captures a lot of the rethinkings of what might be going on. Sort of rethinking this in terms of sort of biblical terms, and yet overlapping with science, the idea of descent from apes, and also the idea of extraterrestrials. So belief narratives, right? You get a lot of stories about androids, about aliens, animals, ghosts, and there's a lot of discussions about, I think, our proper relations to these. And again, going back to that basic question of what are we? Are we earthlings? Are we animals? Do we have souls? Do only we have souls? Are we from the earth, or are we from the heavens? I have used a lot of post-humanism in my own researches, so this idea of rethinking the human. And so I think a lot of these belief narratives that we are seeing are sort of vernacular post-humanisms. They're creatively thinking about what it is to be human, in very, very vernacular ways. And I think these have a great deal of implications for people's politics, for their sense of identity, for their connection to life on Earth. Are they going to be more supportive of, say, space explorations and space travel, or more in terms of, deep ocean exploration or soils exploration within our very own planet? So I think these cosmologies, these outlooks, these beliefs of ontology have a tremendous amount to do with what people think is the appropriate sort of thing to do, particularly given the collapse of our climate and ecosystem. So a lot of the material in what I've been working with comes from the USC Folklore Archives. I'll just put in a brief plug for it here. Folklore.usc.edu. It's open source. It's based on WordPress. So if anybody else would want to recreate this format, it's very, very easy to recreate. So it's an interesting way to keep track of, for me, contemporary narratives coming from, especially my students range in the 17 to 21-year-old range. So a lot of the material that I've been working with, I've drawn from here initially, such as the huge rise of cyber ghost stories. So ghosts are about ontology, who we are, and increasingly there's all of these cyber ghost stories, ghosts haunting the internet, afterlives lived out on the internet. This idea of transhumanism, of uploading oneself to the cloud, or being increasingly sort of cyborged as sometimes a way of achieving eternal life. So there's all these sort of religious themes, scientific themes, pop culture themes, and these are frequently played out in these belief narratives. So alien belief, I think, is really a central one to look at. Alien belief is very, very strong in the United States. It's very embedded. Most Americans believe in alien intervention, that aliens came down, extraterrestrials came down and somehow shaped us or shaped the history of life on Earth or something along those lines. So it is a huge belief. I mean, more people believe in aliens in the United States than believe in ghosts, and a lot of Americans seem to believe in ghosts. It is a part of many of the newer religious traditions, including the Raelians, not really Americans, but they do have a lot of support in America. This is, of course, very explicitly based on these ideas of space travel to global religion, which is interesting, over 100,000 members. And it might be thought of as a very sort of fringe sort of thing, but what I want to point out is that alien belief is sort of embedded into a lot of these newer religions. Scientology has their mythic story. And here in this little meme, the Scientology myth is being opposed to the mythic narrative in the Church of the Latter-day Saints, or the Mormons. Both religions are very, very heavily invested into ideas of space travel, interstellar travel, alien life forms, and all of this. So it's a big part of a lot of the religious traditions that have emanated out from the United States in the last few years. Quite a while ago, even the Latter-day Saints, 1800s. So this has been a part of our culture, down to the most, sacred mythic narratives. And I really think that for a lot of people, alien narratives provide a convenient explanation for man's rapid cultural development and technologies. Where did all these technologies come from? How could it be possible to have had that much change and that much technological advancement in such a short time? It is sort of miraculous. And then, therefore, one easy answer is that, well, there's these aliens with advanced technology. And so this has become the dominant belief in the United States in the last few years. Some versions in religious traditions, and in some versions outside of religious traditions. So quite a wide variety of groups subscribe to this belief with all these attendant narratives. There's a meme, so it goes into all of pop culture. So this is a meme making fun of the very popular program Ancient Aliens. This was on for 12 years so far on the History Channel, very, very popular. And it's a speculative history. And the whole point of each episode is to try to look at something that happened in the past and propose the explanation that it could have been aliens. So this is on the History Channel, right? So this is being beamed out internationally, and again, it has a huge following and a lot of believers in this particular set of narratives. Um, so sometimes you get things that look mythic, creation stories, going right to the sort of sacred heart of what people want to believe. In other versions, we have lots of personal experiences, memories, legends, and then all the other genres, all the jokes, all the comics, cartoons, clothing styles, the list goes on and on. So it's just sort of saturates the culture, these figures. So whether you believe in them or not, you all sort of know and recognize them. And a lot of people do believe in some variety of this. More Americans now believe in the ancient alien intervention narrative than believe Jesus Christ was the Son of God. This is sort of striking to me because America is a very Christian nation. In the upper 60% would profess to be Christian of some variety, and then even more profess a belief that ancient aliens had a hand in creating us. And obviously, since they're both over 60%, there's a lot of overlap between the two. Many Christian traditions think of themselves in terms of Christianity. So one big book that really kicked us off, Chariots of the Gods, Memories of the Future, Unsolved Mysteries of the Past. This sort of reinterpreted a lot of the Old Testament as alien intervention narratives, basically saying that the angels of the Old Testament and the modern day aliens are one and the same. So this allows a lot of Christian belief to overlap sort of seamlessly with those of the extraterrestrials. And there's a lot of overlap even thematically. They frequently recast Christian themes. So here we have the idea of the theme of the rapture, where righteous people will bodily ascend to the heavens, and this is very iconographic. And in here, we have this sort of replay of it with this idea of legendary alien abduction stories. So these can overlap, the idea of alien abduction stories and the idea of the rapture. And a lot of these sort of the themes. And of course, they're all oriented towards the heavens. They're all oriented towards the stars, away from Earth. And they proclaim an ontology that we are not really earthlings, or at least not wholly. So that's a very, I think, important sort of ontological stance to keep track of. So there is a counter narrative that sometimes you encounter in these alien things, which is interesting. So you have these discourses about extraterrestrials, but it allows for this idea, of course, to view humanity as terrestrials, as not ETs. So in some narratives, the aliens are not us. We are not sort of star children. There's a clear opposition. And therefore, it enhances the identity of us as Earthlings. And that's an interesting category. It's very global. It subsumes the idea of the national borders and the nation states into a global community. And I think part of the internet discourse that's erupted at the same time of the Anthropocene creates global communities. Of course, it creates global togetherness and shared interest and shared groups working together. So in this way, there's already this ontology of the global citizen, of us as humanity, as Earthlings. And so this is also a potential rhetoric that can be expressed in these same narratives. All right, maybe aliens are not us, and maybe that we should think of ourselves more as people. So the idea of the global citizens is a growing political identity throughout the world. More and more people are identifying not as citizens of a nation state, but rather primarily as citizens of the world. This is enhanced by not only the global communications, but the Anthropocene, global climate devastation. This is a global problem requiring global solutions. And we have a global community that is very much working on these, that is not really following the nation state. So it also brings up some rhetorical questions. What is it to be an Earthling? What is it to be from Earth? Who all are Earthlings? One other aspect that come at that same time is the sort of the new introductions of ontological beings, you might say, which is the artificial intelligence. As we have become more cyborg, as we have participated more in online discourse, what we find is that the discourse is melding with that of the media. So the machinery that enables our discourse is increasingly taking part in that discourse. Artificial intelligence is not just a way for people to talk, but it enters into our conversations too. So the same technology, the same cyber realm, the same cyborg technology, it's not just a way of getting global communications for people, but it also brings in its own discourse, particularly with AI. So AI quickly also muddying ontological issues. And there's been, I've collected some fascinating ghost stories with Alexa, the unit that's in many people's homes. And so Alexa can act as a spirit medium at times, helping people communicate with their past loved ones. So in many ways, AI has approached these ideas of personhood. We're impinged on ideas of intelligence. You know, who are we? Is it because we're intelligent? Well, AI is intelligent too. So does it have a soul? Can it have a personhood? And then does it trouble our ideas of personhood? This idea of cyborg personhood, where it's part us and then part this online component. So certainly there's been a lot of cyber ghost stories skyrocket in the US, a lot of haunted places online. And there are sort of monsters that are digital natives, like Slender Man. He has never really existed anywhere except the internet. He is built for the internet. So again, this idea of haunting, of ghosts, of monsters, the monstrous, these are also sort of ontological wrestlings about, you know, what is our relationship with this new technology? Where is the self? All right, where do we draw that little line and say this is me? And it's become very, very troubled from all these different sort of angles. And then AI gets really complex when you put it into an Android. Androids are becoming a consumer reality very quickly. The technology is really being pushed, particularly in the country of Japan. This is one of the leaders. But what is happening there will probably come to a supermarket near you very soon. So Japan has found a lot of utility in using robots with AI, basically androids. And androids, you know, why put them into? Because precisely for social integration, so that we can feel that they are a member of our community, so that we can feel that they are a person. You can even do field work among the androids. It's an interesting experience. You know, what to make of the ethics of field work, right? Are those transferable? Are ideas of working with people, do we have to do that, or is it just a machine? It doesn't feel like you're working with the machine when this android is responding to you and talking to you and looking at you. It feels very much like a personable conversation. So this is again becoming a consumer reality. It has been for actually a long time. The first AI robot was the Aibo. And this was interestingly marked, mimicking the dog as a companion species. And Aibos lasted for a long time. They continue to learn, very smart, well integrated in many families. And they are no longer being repaired, the original models. And so they are now dying. And it's sort of interesting in the Japan, many Aibos are being offered full Shinto funerary services in which the priests pray for the AI's soul and its spirit and journey into the afterlife. So in Japan particularly, there's this idea that yes, these things do have personhood, they do have souls, they could potentially become a ghost, and they could become a member of the community. So you have androids even giving religious services, officiating weddings, and sort of entering into a lot of spiritual aspects of personhood in Japan. But with personhood comes a sort of practical and ethical questions. Can one fall in love with a robot? And what are the legalities and practicalities of that? The market is really being driven by sex robots, the consumer market. What are the ethics of sexuality with androids? Are they just machines or something else? This is interesting because, again, ethics has a lot to do with personhood. What do we have to be ethical towards, and why? In general, we don't have to be ethical towards machines, but we do towards people. And sort of interesting that there's a huge campaign that has arisen, a campaign against sex robots that is objecting to this. And so these things are seeing ethical issues in this. So it wouldn't normally come up with machines, right? We don't see that with, again, vibrators or something. So some philosophers are saying that this is horrible. Robo sexuality is just abhorrent. And then other philosophers are saying the exact opposite, that this is a wonderful thing, a boon to mankind. And so, which is it? Clearly, our leading philosophers have no philosophical agreement on this point, again, which is interesting. So how do we treat these? Do androids have rights, or should they? Are they meant to replace us? There's a rhetoric of transhumanism, the idea that we can upload our consciousness, our mind, as if we can separate this from our body, following that Abrahamic idea of the body versus the soul, and Descartes, who rewrote this as the mind versus the body. But it still seems to be the same thing. There's a huge belief in this thing called the mind. No one has ever seen a mind or weighed a mind, or it's never been shown. Yet there's this belief in the mind seeming to align very well with beliefs in the soul, or the person, or the ghost. And so with transhumanism, following this rhetoric, this idea that we could upload ourselves onto the internet, upload ourselves perhaps into androids, this sort of metempsychosis in a modern form. And this is a very, very growing belief narrative as well, that this is going to happen, and this is should happen. And this aligns a lot with a lot of prosthetics, and this gradual increasing cyborgicization of the body. There are an interesting subculture called the grinders, which modify purposely their body, putting in implants and whatnot, with this idea of this is the goal, to sort of merge the android world with our consciousness. But with that, the idea of something, the other sort of earthlings, what about animals, right? The idea that we're earthlings is one thing to say, but aren't dogs earthlings? Aren't wolves earthlings? So this is another interesting shifting ontology. Do animals have souls? It seems to be very, very much in flux. Are we animals? That question seems to be very, very much in flux. According to the Abrahamic traditions and Western scientific and cultural traditions, you don't know. The Abrahamic traditions make a very clear distinction. Animals do not have souls. Animals do not go to heaven. On the other hand, there's a very, very strong discourse in belief on animal souls, which is interesting. And are we animals? What is our relationship with them? What is our ontological relationship? Clearly, the words are different, people and animals. So what do those different words mean? Can animals be people? Can animals have ethical or legal rights? We had a case of a chimp suing for habeas corpus in the United States a couple of years ago. And interesting, according to a recent survey, about half of all US citizens believe that animals do have souls. So in that survey, you had 48% saying yes or probably yes, 32% no, and 20% undecided. Meanwhile, about 64% of Americans believe that people have souls. So there is a strong folk belief in the idea of animal souls and animal consciousness, and this sort of idea. And you can, see this much more expressed in our indigenous cultures in the Americas. Certainly, I think that the indigenous cultures have a radically different ontological set, and I've been very interested in this for quite a while. So the Native American and the wider sort of Beringian traditions, and by Beringian I mean sort of circumpolar, Arctic, and the Americas. In these traditions, they're huge, they're spread out over several continents, but just basic ontology: animals are people. they're not Homo sapiens sapiens, but they're people. They have personhood. They have souls. They have an afterlife. And that we are, as humans, enmeshed in a webs of ethical and pragmatic relations with all other life. So the whole system of ethics in many of these Beringian traditions is built on this web of interrelationships. So rather than assuming a uniqueness that separates us out from everything else, the emphasis is really on those connections. And that really accord well with sustainable, practical relationships with the natural environment. So, for example, the Haida Gwa in southeast Alaska, they've been living in the same little lagoon, the same spot for over 12,000 years. 12,000 years in one spot sustainably without overexploiting the resources. And so, this would not have brought on the climate conditions that we have. So we think about the Anthropocene. It's important to remember, as Bruno Latour pointed out for the American Anthropological Association, that the Anthropocene as a term is accurate. It is Homo sapiens causing the sixth great extinction. But it's not all Homo sapiens. It's not all of us equally. It is not indigenous peoples. And so that's really, I think, critical distinction to make. That it is not the indigenous peoples that have brought on our current emergency situation. And so I think that there's a lot we could learn from indigenous peoples in this regard. And again, going to those sort of very, very basic ontological questions. Native Americans do hunt. So here, this photo, a group of Yupik hunters has got a small beluga whale, and they're praying for its soul. They are thanking it. They will also, there's some other funerary traditions that they would employ. Again, the Anthropocene was not really caused by the indigenous groups, and in general, the indigenous groups have played a strong counterweight to the ongoing devastation. So indigenous peoples are somewhere around maybe 2% of the world's population, but the land they control contains over 80% of the Earth's remaining biodiversity. The photo here is from the Dakota Access Pipeline protest when they were trying to build the pipeline through land that, according to an 1851 treaty, belonged to the Sioux Nation. Indigenous groups and in the Americas have been, and elsewhere in the world, have been in the lead of the sustainability fight, the fight against the climate devastation. And again, if you boil all these things down, why? These are poor people. They have a lot of other things to worry about. They're not here to protest because they wanted more money. They were not asking for their cut. They were out there because they viewed it as something that shouldn't happen due to the sacred quality of life. And that requires one to care, and that requires one to act in a way that in accordance with the sustenance of life on Earth. So these conflicts, the Anthropocene, which is driven by Western society, capitalism, its ideas that we are not of this Earth, that we really are, star children somewhere else, and the clashing very noticeably with other ontologies, other religious and spiritual traditions, other sacred creation stories. So these seem to be these huge, large-scale political conflicts with a great deal to tell us about the future of life on Earth. I think you can really boil them down to ontology, who we are, and these are expressed through narratives and negotiated through narratives. And so these narratives, I think, are kind of reaching a crucial point. Which narrative will win out? Are we from the heavens? Or are we from Earth? So right now, what I see in the United States and to some degree throughout the world are popular ontologies in wild flux. And you can observe this in many, many different belief narratives. And the central question, what is our relationship to the rest of life on Earth. If there is something sacred out there, if there are souls, is it just us? Do we share them? Where is our ontology located? In the heavens, or in Earth and in life itself? So it's a huge clash. Traditionally, the Abrahamic and Western views have viewed humans as unique in all sorts of ways, including in the spiritual sense. And yet we can see a real growth in opposing identities. The idea of us as earthlings, connected to the idea of us as global citizens, but also connected with the idea of life on Earth. So the Anthropocene, this collapse of biological life, is happening at the same time of global cyber communications. And these allow for these new models, these new challenges to the national model of culture. And they also allow for new ontological viewpoints. People are becoming aware of different cultures, indigenous ways of looking at things, sci-fi from around the world, with these new ideas of cyborg ontology as well, AI souls, cyborg afterlife. So all of this is being debated with a great deal of vigor. There are a tremendous amount of narratives out there that are discussing these. And it will be interesting to see how all of this progresses. I have been trying to follow this as best I can and remain very interested in continuing to follow this. And I would love to hear ideas from the rest of you of how to interpret some of these very, very interesting and very, very widespread beliefs that seem to be gaining great ascendancy these days in the United States. So I think there's a real, beyond just sort of academic curiosity too, that there's a real necessity in engaging for these sort of things, because again, if we view ourselves as part of the web of life on Earth, this is a web of life on Earth that we are currently devastating. And if we are devastating our host organism that we live off of, as any epidemiologist will tell you, if you kill off your host, that's usually the end of the organism as well. So for the future of life to continue in any sort of recognizable form, there have to be, I think, changes in our ontologies. I think this is at the root of some of what we must do as a society and as a species in order to lessen the impact that we are currently having. So for the future of life on Earth, let's hope that all of this is of some value. And once again, I want to thank you all very, very much for inviting me to give the lecture series, and for allowing me to partake, and for allowing me to hear all your wonderful thoughts. So with that, I will end my recording and be available to take questions. Thank you.